everybody. Welcome to the Enterprise Lab Startup Scale-Up Summit. Hope you're enjoying the session so far. This is a fireside chat, so welcome to my fireside. As you can see in the background, you're very welcome. We'll squeeze all of you into my lounge if we possibly can. And delighted to be talking about the subject today. It's an understated title, Mind Hacking Your Way to Accelerated Performance and Explosive Scaling. So let's be honest, we must have somebody really good to go with that. And we definitely have. I'm Steve Parker from Steve Parker ICD International Company Development. We don't need to talk about me. You can find me in the expo and in the networking area. More importantly, I'm pleased to welcome our star guest for this next half an hour of conversation, Micheal Jacobsen. Morning, Micheal.
Hey, Steve. Nice to be with you today.
Nice to be with you as well. We've got a lot to go through, and people can see your profile on the site as well, can't they? But we want to hear all about it because you've been a busy man. In fact, one of the things that impressed me was, you know, the old line about if only the French had a word for entrepreneur. Well,
yes.
I'm guessing, and I'm not going to ask you it specifically, but you know the word for entrepreneur in almost every country, including some that you and I have barely heard of, don't you?
Well, I do actually. I certainly do. It's a universal word. I recall who said, "Is there a word in French for entrepreneur?" But it's political discussion outside the scope of this session, so we'll leave it.
Okay, brilliant. Lots to get through. Talk us through your business career, or I was going to say the journey word, but let's just talk about your business role.
Steve, I started off in finance. I'm Australian. I live. Subject to COVID, I commute between Australia and the UK, but I started off in trading, actually, in stock market trading. I pretty quickly moved into entertainment and leisure. Furthermore, moved into property and property development. And I'm still active as an entrepreneur, but my main focus now is as a strategic business coach. I work with CEOs, I work with ambitious entrepreneurs, and I'm working with people, you know, in most parts of the world. At any one time. I've got a passion for education. What I'm trying to bring to bear with people at all times is that entrepreneurialism is a way of thinking, and that no matter what level you are in any organization, it's something which you can implement, and that's what my passion is.
Fantastic. Again, being a little bit modest, because if people check on your bio, it says something about dirty dancing or something. That was something big in the entertainment industry you've done. Tell us how that came about.
Yes, I was involved in a consortium with 4 partners. In fact, strangely enough, it was 16 years ago yesterday, November 18, that Dirty Dancing opened in Sydney, Australia, which was a world premiere. And my consortium bought the global rights to what was a very successful movie, low budget, but one of the most successful movies and one of the most successful movie soundtracks of all time. We turned it into a stage show, and we bought the global IP rights for that and produced it in around 30 cities. It's still going, subject again to COVID hiatus, sadly, but I've sold out of it now. I've exited that business, but it's considered to be, in terms of its revenue, one of the top 5 highest grossing entertainment products, live entertainment products of all time, alongside Phantom of the Opera and Cats and Mamma Mia. So I'm pretty proud of that, and we built it into a global business. It wasn't just a warm and fuzzy entertainment show. It was a global empire with London as its secondary headquarters after Sydney, and it was pretty hardcore business, really. Show business, it's quite a hardcore business. You're dealing with licensing agreements. You're dealing with, multiple territories, multiple languages. A show that the curtain goes up every night in many different cities, where just about anything can happen. And on top of that, you're trying to maintain this amazing legacy brand and build a business. But we did that, and going back to the word journey, I reached the end of what I consider to be the journey in building that business, which is, as an entrepreneur, what I do and what I help other people to do. And once it got to the maturity phase of its life cycle, I exited stage, they say, in the business.
Yeah, but unlike some business roles that you can do, even though you're not invested in it anymore, I guess it's going to follow you around for a while, for a number of years, because it seems to be one of those repeats on TV every now and again. It's kind of a feel-good movie. So I don't think you're going to escape in your lifetime from seeing it appearing on stage somewhere when the world gets back to some kind of normal, are you?
Yes, no, I mean, historically over the last few years, as I've been traveling around anywhere from Madrid to Vienna to, various different other places, I've seen different signs for it and advertisements, and I'm always very proud. And I think any entrepreneur who's built a business or helped to build a business, whatever its profile might be, whenever you see evidence of that business still showing up and staying alive, that's something that you should be proud of, because that's what you've created or helped to create. And everybody, I think, feels that way as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think that's part of the mindset we'll talk about. Sometimes you forget about the figures, but you tend to remember the experiences you had along the way. We want to talk about entrepreneurial mindset, really, because I know you've introduced it into a number of countries. How do you do that in the first place? How do you explain to people what entrepreneurism even means? And a mindset isn't something on a piece of paper, is it? So how do you explain it, and how would you explain it to us, an entrepreneur's mindset?
Well, yes, I work with anybody from government ministers to CEOs to actual day-to-day entrepreneur founders, as we know them to be. And this is something. It's a term which actually means something different to almost everybody. If you go and talk to 10 people in the street, they'll have 10 different answers. Especially when you're dealing with people in all different cultures in all different parts of the world. The fact is that entrepreneurialism is it's a way of thinking, it's a way of operating, and it's a methodology that can be applied in different areas of the world. Now, when you apply entrepreneurialism in business, you're an entrepreneur. In the old days, you just used to be called a business person, but now we've come to realize that this is a methodology. When you apply entrepreneurialism in science, you're a scientist. Look at the people who developed the COVID vaccine. We're all hoping that it works, but look at the people who developed the COVID vaccine, never mind in such a short amount of time. They're entrepreneurial. Now, they're scientists. They don't commercialize it. Of course, Pfizer and Glaxo and whoever the big farmers, they sit on the commercial end. What an act of entrepreneurialism to be devising these, the experimentation and the innovation that's required. So, also, if you're a manager, if you're a CEO, or if you're in an executive leadership team, you might consider yourself to be a hardcore manager, and that you're running a business, you're executing, you're not there to take risks. But again, the entrepreneurial spirit is not about taking risks. It's about how can you overlay that methodology into your business, and therefore build into your business, into your methodology as a CEO, that ability to innovate, to create, and to grow. And most CEOs, certainly the ones that I work with, realize that they can maintain their hard executive veneer or their executive veneer, but also implementing this methodology allows the business to grow, not just stabilize, not just maintain, but to grow. So to answer your question, it's a methodology, it's a way of thinking and operating.
And is one of the challenges that I guess the leaders of some of the bigger companies, the PLCs, have to spend so long on finances and accounts, and that makes them, I suppose, difficult to think about entrepreneurship, to think about ideas. So that must take a lot of coaching and explaining from you to tease that out of them, or to change their mindset completely.
I think it's a really great point. A very high profile example of what you're talking about is Evan Spiegel, the founder of Snapchat, or Snap as it's now called. And he actually was on the other end of the scale. He considered himself to be very entrepreneurial, highly entrepreneurial, but didn't have the context to implement that entrepreneurialism to be a good business leader. But there's plenty of and he's on the record as saying he got business coaches to come in and work with him to help him maintain his entrepreneurialism, but to channel it positively. So it wasn't just this right brain, sort of crazy idea stuff, but it was, able to be channeled and grow the business. Once he did that, Snapchat, obviously, which started off huge and then went through a malaise for quite some time. He got the business coaching, he implemented his entrepreneurial spirit in an executive leadership team way. And again, we're now seeing unbelievable innovations out of Snapchat. What you've raised is the other end of the spectrum, where you get people who businesses are so large, the administration of actually running the business, the beast that is this business, the mechanism and the business functions, finance, accounting, leadership, human resources, all of these areas, it doesn't really leave a lot of space in a CEO's mind or a leader's mind to be creative. But if they don't do that, there is plenty of people, many high profile examples of companies which have operated that way and who've fallen off a cliff because they didn't innovate. Look at Nokia. I just saw an image the other day of, I think it was from 2007. I'm pretty sure it was Nokia, maybe it was Motorola. I think it was Nokia on the front page of Forbes magazine from 2007 saying Nokia is doing so great. Can anybody ever catch them? Well, what happened pretty soon after that? iPhone caught them, and I don't know of many people that use Nokias anymore in the short 13 years. Their board must have thought they're doing a pretty great job. They couldn't do anything wrong until they failed to innovate. So it's a real risk if you don't, and it's not a buzzword, it's not an exciting word, it's not anything, warm and fuzzy. It is a business methodology. And if you don't do it as a big company, you will die. And if you don't understand the methodology as a CEO or a leadership team, it's only a matter of time, unless you get really lucky, it's only a matter of time before somebody who is innovative comes and overtakes you. But if you can nail the execution and the innovation of the entrepreneurial methodology, you're going to put yourself in good stead.
So with some of the countries that you've advised at senior level, we'll bring it down to company level at the moment soon, but with some of the people who've gone in, was it they didn't have entrepreneurialism at all, or they just didn't recognize some of the symptoms?
I work with so in the country perspective, I worked with countries and with governments. I was as an advisor to the Minister of Economy in Slovakia, in Central and Eastern Europe, and during that they held the EU presidency a few years ago. And entrepreneurialism and innovation was one of their top priorities, and it remains as a top priority. Extremely entrepreneurial country. What they lacked was the understanding. The startups and the businesses were very entrepreneurial. What they lacked was the understanding of then how to scale that entrepreneurialism. So they had the spirit, they understood the methodology, broadly speaking, but there was broadly speaking, a lack of understanding from government level down as to how to actually embed this entrepreneurial methodology, how to inject it, how to embed it within government and within government agencies and within organizations. And again, there is a process which a lot of people fear. And they didn't actually; they embraced it. But government types often can then say, "Well, we can't be innovative. We're government, or we can't be innovative. We're talking to big corporates." But then sooner they realize it's just a methodology. It doesn't mean that you start wearing shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops to work and sitting on a beanbag. It doesn't mean that at all. It's just another way of thinking, another tool in your armory.
But that was one of the early images of it, wasn't it, really? It was to be radical, and it was to, as you say, have people sitting around on beanbags and strolling in, because it was all about that. I'm glad there's a bit more method to it, because...
Spectrum. There's a spectrum. Obviously, people who do that, we love them, and they're the crazy ones, as Steve Jobs referred to them as, and they're the ones who are actually perhaps coming up with the maverick ideas. But then there's a spectrum, and you've got to move through that spectrum as you want to evolve. But it doesn't mean as you move through the spectrum that you lose the entrepreneurial methodology. It just evolves.
So it's obviously a much longer session, but share with us one or two insights into how people start developing an entrepreneurial mindset, and some of the coaching and some of the programs that you do. Tell us some of the elements of them.
So let's talk about. I'm assuming today, probably just an assumption. We could have CEOs, we could have executives watching this or downloading it at a later time. But let me talking directly at the moment. Firstly, to the actual founder community of entrepreneurs. The first thing that people have to realize is that we all hear that entrepreneurialism is hard and business is hard. I would argue that, everything's how you look at it. You could argue that anything's hard. Coming up with a COVID vaccine is hard. Getting in front of a classroom and teaching 30, unruly kids is hard. Being a firefighter or a policeman is hard. So, everything could be hard if you look at it that way. I'd like to put that aside and say that, to reframe that, you need mental toughness. And the reason you need mental toughness is because as an entrepreneur, as a founder entrepreneur, you are you're involved in an act of creation. So basically, you've got a vision, which is an intangible. It's in your head, literally in your head or your heart. No one else, your friends, family, other people can't see it because it was given to you. You then have to materialize or alchemize this vision into something that's manifested into reality. So you got an idea, and then X weeks, months, years later, that's manifested into a reality. It's an entity. It's employing people. It's got statutory obligations. It's making money. It's doing things. It's creating products or services, all from an idea or a concept. So that requires mental toughness because it requires experimentation. And again, people talk about failing and failing fast and whatever. I prefer to look at it again using the scientist analogy of experimentation. And every day in my businesses and every day in the businesses of the people that I'm coaching, we're experimenting. And we're experimenting in a very small way. And we're not trying to come up with ideas that will change 100% of their business overnight. Sure, they come sometimes, but the goal is not that, because those ideas are extremely risky and most people don't have that risk profile. And also, they are, that they happen, but they're more 1 in 20 or 1 in 30 rather than something that you can do every day. What you can do every day is experiment, which is the second point after mental toughness, the experimentation. What you can do is you can look at doing something, slight changes. It might change 5% of the dial of this or that, change 5% customer engagement, change 5% in the way that you engage with your stakeholders, change 5% in the way that you cultivate future investors. So you look at that, and then if you change 5% over 10 different areas in your business, you've achieved a great result, but you've only put, notionally speaking, a small amount of risk on the line, but you can still then aggregate a big result. And so that does require mental toughness and experimentation. And the final thing is that you have to have, again, a word that's used a lot, passion. But you have to have passion for the core business. Not many entrepreneurs have, myself included, have passion for the administrative side of the business or for the accounting, or you got to understand it, but I'm not passionate about that, and I'm not passionate about certain areas of business that aren't my core skill set. I'm passionate about the areas that I'm passionate about, and whatever area you're creating a business in, you've got to be passionate about that, whether it be biotechnology, whether it be coffee, whatever it might be. If you're passionate about coffee and you set up a coffee chain, that doesn't mean you're passionate about signing rental agreements with landlords or dealing with licensing, government licensing. No, it means that you're passionate about the core, and that's the key. You have to remain passionate about the core, just like in a marriage or in a relationship. Nobody loves everything about things about people get on people's nerves, but you still have passion for the core heart of the person that you're with. And so the same with that. And if you keep that then imbues your whole aura, your whole mindset with the passion that you need to get through those things that you don't want to do. And these things, mental toughness, an attitude towards experimentation, a passion for your core, they're all intangible. I can't prove them. I can't say there they are. They're intangible, but yet they're some of the greatest assets of an entrepreneur.
Well, I thought that would be part of your challenge, part of our challenge, those involved in what we're doing here, is that there isn't, it isn't black and white, it isn't profit or loss, it isn't turnover or whatever, it is trying to explain it. Do you think anybody can have their mindset changed in the way you do it? Or are there some people who've been in a certain mindset for so long that it wouldn't be possible for them to change?
That's an interesting question that goes to the core of humanity. And I think, considering a lot of the work that I do with the people that I work with actually revolves around their mindset. And the reason it does revolve around their mindset is because if you are open to having your mind change and open to having your mindset change, it means you are open to creation. If your mind is closed and you say, no, this is the only way, and I'm not prepared to open it, then you're not open to any creation, and therefore it's going to be quite difficult for you to create anything. So to flip the question back, the answer is you have to be open to having an open mind, and because that then opens you to the creative ideas and the concepts that might come in. So anybody that's prepared to be open to having an open mind can pursue this path. If your mind is closed and you're one of those people that just says that's the way I've done it, and that's the way I'm always going to do it, and that's the way I'm always going to do it, and it's my way or the highway, then that's a difficult person to work with, frankly.
Yeah, well, I was thinking that, but in those instances, it might be a case of that they could appoint somebody to lead it and be the figurehead from it, who has that extra element that you and I both agree on, which is that passion and enthusiasm to force it through. Otherwise, it becomes a false version of entrepreneurship, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and this is why when you're dealing with founders, usually you've got, in startup businesses or scale-up business, usually you've got 2 or 3 founders, and you find that out of those, you've got usually one of them is the sort of entrepreneurial driver. One might be the tech brain, or one might be the nuts and bolts finance brain, and so you've usually got that mindset. So it's usually there somewhere that you can work with it. And similar in a business, a CEO's job is to have an open mind, and a CEO with a closed mind is really not a very good CEO, quite frankly, and not going to be a particularly successful one. So their job is to always be on the lookout and prise their mind open.
Yeah, interesting times and an interesting challenge you set yourself. But you managed to do this and build multiple businesses in all sorts of countries. Was that part of your own plan originally? Did you discover something inbuilt in you that makes you do that kind of naturally? How does that happen?
Yes, I think that, again, entrepreneurialism is a spectrum, and not everybody's necessarily built to build things internationally. Some people are, some people are not, and it doesn't necessarily make you any more or less successful or any better or worse than anybody else. But part of my DNA has always been being involved in international business. And that's carried through to working to international coaching and international strategy and international advisory as well. But I find that there is just so many different opportunities and so many different areas that one can get excited about. And with the work I do, especially in Central Eastern Europe, there's some fantastic things, and I can see there that countries like Slovakia, Czech Republic, Romania, Lithuania, Estonia is already extremely advanced in their ecosystem. There's going to be some fantastic things that my team and I are involved in over there that will, that collectively with the ecosystem will come to fruition. So there's always something interesting going on in different parts of the world when you've got an international mindset. But that's just me. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, no, but it was obviously built into you somewhere, and the fire's grown, if you like, and you can tell from your enthusiasm and your energy now that you do what you speak. So what sort of tips and advice would you give if we got people who are either now thinking, crikey, yeah, I must change my mindset, or if they're just starting a business at the same time? When you're starting or scaling up a business, you get tons of advice. What sort of tips would you give to people to develop the side of the mind that is going to turn them into better entrepreneurs?
Firstly, as an entrepreneur, you always have to be very clear, or as a person who's got an idea that you want to let's say it like this: you got an idea that you want to commercialize. You want to make money from your idea and turning your idea into something. So therefore, you got to be pretty clear on what your vision is, what it is that you're trying to achieve, what is it you're trying to do. If you don't know what your vision is, then it's very difficult to have a business at all. You then have to look at, let me give you a high profile example right now. Pret a Manger, a sandwich and coffee chain across the UK, across the US actually, that we're all of those of us who are UK based and probably East Coast USA based are familiar with, certainly in the UK. Like all, of course, hospitality businesses, sadly, they've been extremely damaged across coronavirus. A lot of people may not have a lot of sympathy for them because they're not a small business. But the point I want to make is this: Pret was a multi-billion-pound business owned by a multi-billion-dollar private equity company. That didn't make them immune from the unexpectedness of coronavirus. Yes, like everybody else, they benefited from the furlough scheme, but that still didn't make their board immune. Excusing the pun. Sorry, that still didn't make their board, give them a free kick in this scenario. Their board has had to sit down and work out, well, we've actually got thousands of stores in the UK. We're employing tens of thousands of people. What are we going to do? And to their credit, they engage in what I would consider an extreme act of innovation, which is introducing a subscription model where you're paying something like £20 a month, and basically within certain limitations, I think you can't go back within 2 hours, you get free coffee for £20 a month. Now, coffee doesn't cost very much, so their margin on that's pretty high. But what a great act of innovation for that board, who could have just sat there and said, "Oh, this is difficult. We're going to close more stores. We're going to fire more people." They've innovated, and they've thought outside the box at that level, and that's something that everybody needs to realize. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a multi-billion-dollar private equity company, a multi-billion-dollar company. Pret could easily have gone from being a multi-billion-pound company to bankrupt within this period. They could have. But they engage in innovation. So you've got to plan for the unexpected always. Yes, we hope that there's a pandemic only once 100 years, but you've always got to plan for something unexpected. You've got to have that innovative mindset, just like the Pret board members or CEO or whomever made this, what I think is a fantastic decision to introduce a subscription. And you've got to deal in facts, but maintain your vision. So you've always got to live in the fantasy of your vision. And it is a fantasy because it hasn't happened yet. It's out in the ether, but you're still striving for it. But you've got to deal in the facts. You can't say, well, the coronavirus happened or the economy crashed or this happened, and but I'm not going to change anything about the way I do business. And also, you can't say, well, everything's destroyed. Let's just forget about it. You've got to deal in the facts, but continue to work towards a fantasy until one day you get close or you achieve that fantasy, which is your ultimate vision. Again, a lot of it's in the mind.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left. It's flown by as expected. So one of the things we need to get the message out for, even though we are in these difficult circumstances, it's no excuse not to keep developing an entrepreneurial mindset and keep developing your business, even though things might be tough at the moment.
Things are tough. There's a lot of support around for people, I think, without being political about it. And people should take this support to the full extent that they can. Do whatever you can and get support to stay on your feet. But if you have ideas, bear in mind that the majority of successful multi-billion-dollar, certainly New York Stock Exchange listed companies, to use the highest profile example, many of them started during bad economic times. Because you see, just to close off on this point, we are entering into what I see as a new economy. And it's not just Corona, post-Corona. It's the next decade, probably the next century. Coronavirus has ushered in a new economy, and that's going to require a new way of thinking, a new way of doing business, and a whole host, a plethora of almost unlimited opportunities. So with no disrespect intended to people who are doing it tough, and all of us have had businesses, I think, over this period which have done it tough in one way or another, myself included. So I'm not here to airbrush that out of reality, but you've got to sit down and say, what are we going to do in this new economy? New economy doesn't only mean tech, by the way. It could mean a whole way of doing things. It could mean a reinvention of the high streets. It's almost unlimited. But you've got to look at what's the new economy and how can I fit in? How can I work my entrepreneurial idea into that going forward? And then secondly, Steve, and most importantly, you've got to act. You don't want to be one of those people that's still sitting here in a year saying, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that. You've got to do something today about it. Make a call, do something. And that then gets the energy in motion.
Yeah, don't just stick with wishing. We've only got a brief minute to talk. So we did have some technical issues earlier. If you didn't catch, Michael and I carried on talking regardless anyway, didn't we, Michael? So if you please catch up on the rest of the recording, it'll be available very shortly. Had a couple of questions through, which I think we've covered, but if we didn't, then just get in touch with either Michael or myself and we'll give you the answers as best we can anyway. So I've been Steve Parker. You can catch me in the exhibition area and the networking stand. I'd be glad to help you out if in any way I could. And Michael, thanks ever so much for your time. We've exchanged some great ideas, providing a lot of great clarity on performance and just our mindsets, which are going to be, although not quantifiable, as you said, sometimes absolutely invaluable over the next few months and years, aren't they?
Yeah, I believe so. Thanks, Steve. Great to be with you today.
Michael, thanks ever so much. That was Micheal Jacobsen. Have a look at his profile before you move away to your next exciting session on the Enterprise Lab Startup Scale-Up Summit. I'll be back with you later today. Enjoy the rest of the summit. And thanks again, Michael. Really appreciate it.